we have to start with my pal, Charles Barkley, joining my former mentor, Bob Costas, on Costas' new show, talking about LeBron. Now, full disclosure here, again, I really, really like both of the people involved in this interview, even though I hate what you're about to hear. And full disclosure, I once upon a time at a Cleveland hotel around 1 in the morning got into a very friendly but very loud argument with Charles about this very topic. So I bring with it some baggage. But Costas did exactly what he should do. He asked Charles about the NBA question that will never go away, LeBron or Michael, and here is what Charles had to say. The struggle is part of your legacy. There's no doubt about it. The problem for Charles and folks that make that argument is they don't finish the thought. So the argument there is, oh, LeBron didn't go through the struggle. The hell do you call 7 years where the best teammate you ever play with is Mo Williams, where the second best teammate you have is Zydrunas Ilgauskas, the third is Larry Hughes, the fourth is maybe Ricky Davis or a year of Carlos Boozer, and those guys didn't overlap. It's not like you had those for that monster foursome together. No, that was over 7 years in Cleveland, where LeBron James gave the city, basically his hometown, his organization, time and outstanding play. Brought him to the finals in year 4 at age 22. Gave them every opportunity to build around him. And they said, how does Mo Williams, Boobie Gibson, and a 400-pound Shaquille O'Neal do for you? And the answer was, it's not enough. And when Charles is such an interesting messenger on this. And again, I know Charles, I like Charles, but I don't know why he keeps pounding his head into this rock, because his story is one of the moment there was the struggle, he bounced. And again, this isn't me being unfair, but this is me letting the younger audience know exactly what Charles's career was. In 1983, the Philadelphia 76ers not only won the title, you could argue it was the greatest team ever. 2 years later, they draft Charles Barkley. Really, a year and a half later, they draft Charles Barkley. They still have Dr. J, who was a league MVP, Moses Malone, who was a top 5 player in the league, Andrew Toney, who was one of the most historically underrated players ever, and Mo Cheeks, who was a Hall of Famer. That's the team Charles got drafted into. His first year there, they damn near make the finals. They make the Eastern Conference Finals. And then a few years later, they trade Moses and Dr. J retires. And the team gets a little worse and a little worse and a little worse. Until in 92, they miss the playoffs entirely. So what does Charles do? Bails. Trade me. Get me out of here. And does he go to a team where he's going to build it up? No. Goes to Phoenix that had won 50 games 4 years in a row. And Charles, because he's an all-time great player, nearly got Phoenix over the top. Got him to the finals, won a league MVP, had the best year of his career. They lose in 6 to the Bulls. And then over the next 3 years, twice, they lose to Houston in a heartbreaking 7-game series. And what does Charles do? Bails. Not only bails, says, send me to Houston. You can Google the New York Times article. He wasn't bashful about it back in 96 when it happened. So Charles was drafted into a perfect situation, didn't win, and as it became a bad situation, bailed. And when he says, I don't want to do the LeBron Kobe thing, but because listen, we know if you're going to be objective, it's not only that LeBron has more finals MVPs, 4-1 regular season MVPs, it's that LeBron is better at everything than Kobe was. Nick, Kobe's a better scorer. Well, LeBron averages more points. Nick, Kobe's a better shooter. Well, LeBron has a better field goal percentage from 3 and from 2. We know he's a better passer. We know he's a better rebounder. We know he's a better defender. But set that aside. When you set just the story, the arc of Kobe, who Charles said, and Charles in the bar in Cleveland 3 years ago when he and I argued about this, made the exact same argument. How do you have him above Kobe? Okay, well, I love Kobe. And he's obviously legendary and one of the most influential players ever. Kobe also was drafted to a team with Shaquille O'Neal. And very early in his career got Phil Jackson. That's not a struggle. If part of the beauty is the struggle, there's not a struggle when you're drafted to be Shaq's wingman. And by the way, again, history matters. Shaq leaves. The Lakers miss the playoffs. Then they lose in round one, blowing a 3-1 lead. Then they lose in round one again. And what does Kobe do when the struggle hits him? Goes on Stephen A. Smith's radio show and says, trade me. I'm getting out of here. And that trade damn near happened till Dr. Buss came in and stopped it. Then the Lakers get Pau Gasol. Not so much of a struggle anymore. And Kobe finishes his whole career there. So what are we talking about? The Tim Duncan archetype? Where you're drafted to a team with a league MVP and David Robinson, who's at the tail end of his prime? The Magic Johnson archetype? Where you're drafted to a team with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Or the Kareem archetype? Where, hey, you got Oscar Robertson. Now he's not prime Oscar Robertson, but you got Oscar Robertson. So what are we talking about? Giannis? Now, there is almost no one in the country that was higher on the Bucks this year than me, higher on Giannis throughout this playoff run. I think he's the best player alive, taking that crown from LeBron. And what Giannis is, this is one of the most important, impressive title runs ever. With that said, LeBron would have killed to have Drew Holiday, let alone Chris Middleton. He didn't have that. He had Sasha Pavlovich and old Drew Gooden. There is no comp in NBA history for a guy who had what LeBron had for 7 years, did more with it than him, and won a title. Give me a break. That Cavs team, his final 2 years there, averaged 64 wins. The 4 years after he left, averaged 24 wins, despite having the number one pick 3 of those 4 years. Oh, he stacks his teams. Why? By going back to Cleveland and teaming up with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, 2 guys who had a combined 0 playoff appearances. Oh, he stacks his team by going to the Lakers, who hadn't made the playoffs in 6 years, by trading away, at the time, traded too much, a whole young core, for Anthony Davis, who had won 1 playoff series. It's just not the accurate history. And if we are going to do this with LeBron, where we are going to play the why didn't he do what Michael did game. And by the way, Michael, and again, people know this at this point, but it's worth reiterating. Michael never beat Bird Celtics. Never. And Michael got his teeth kicked in, not by Isaiah's Pistons 3 years in a row. And it wasn't so much that the Bulls got a lot better that 4th year as much as it was the Pistons aged out of it. After the Pistons had been to 3 straight finals, after the Pistons had been in the conference finals seemingly, for half a decade, they got old. And also, though, and I think people know this, Michael, it's not only that he didn't win a playoff series, he won 1 playoff game before Scottie got there. You think if they don't draft Scottie and they don't then hire Phil, Michael's just like, nope, Chicago Bull for life? Why would he? His draft mate, Charles Barkley, bailed on Philly when things got bad. But if we're going to do the compare and contrast LeBron to Michael, then we've got to do it in the reverse as well. 3 greatest players ever. We can all argue about the order, but if you have a brain and you care at all about the history of the game, you know the 3 greatest players ever, in some order, are Kareem, Michael, and LeBron. Well, Kareem, did have 4 years of John Wooden, and then Oscar Robertson, and then Magic Johnson and Pat Riley. Michael did have 3 years of Dean Smith with James Worthy alongside him, and then Phil Jackson. LeBron, meanwhile, had a literal math teacher, high school basketball coach, then Paul Silas, Mike Brown, Sasha Pavlovich, Ira Newble, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Mo Williams, who was pretty good for a couple years, Larry Hughes, Drew Gooden. That's who he had. And David Blatt, took them to the finals. And Spo, who we now know is a great coach, but had done nothing and won titles. And Frank Vogel, who now everybody loves, but at the time failed in Orlando, was on his third and final chance. So if we're going to do it one way, we got to do it the other way. And I'd say Charles knows better, but on this one he doesn't. But all he has to do is look to his own career arc. The struggle wasn't the greatness. The struggle was the time to bail. And so you want to make the argument LeBron should have stuck it out in Cleveland. I hope you feel the same way about Dame. Dame, never leave Portland. By the way, LeBron would have killed for a C.J. McCollum. Probably would have won a title with a C.J. McCollum. So there's Charles Barkley. I got some thoughts on what Costas said as well. And Costas wrote me a letter recommendation to Syracuse University. I love that man, but he had some questionable commentary as well. We'll play that for you in a bit.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.